My siblings inherited $48 million. I got a rusted locker key, and the one thing that made their millions worthless. Kira Calder was never a real daughter, Aunt Meryl had told me at 13. You were a pause, not a plan. That stuck. My father remarried, had golden heirs, and rewrote history like I was a typo. So when the lawyer announced I'd been left nothing, nobody was surprised. Except me. Because tucked inside that envelope was a key and 6 handwritten words, Locker 237. Midtown Terminal. Midnight. Alone. That night, I went. Not for closure. For clarity. Please subscribe as we continue to give you these stories. My father left you nothing, the lawyer said. Just like that. No hesitation and no shame. Across the table, Camille's eyes stayed dry behind her designer glasses. Sebastian was already grinning. Ava exhaled through her nose like it was all beneath her. I didn't speak. I just looked down at the envelope he pushed toward me. Plain. Sealed. My name in my father's handwriting, careful, neat, final. Locker 237, it read. Midtown Terminal. Midnight. They snorted. I stood. They let me walk out like a waitress who'd overstayed her shift. They got the fortune. I got the key. They always said I was the trial version. Born too early, too plain, too much like my mother. The 3 of them came later, polished, perfect, molded in the second marriage with a last name that didn't carry shame. I grew up in their house, but never in their family. Camille called me the ghost. Ava once asked a driver if I was staff. And Sebastian, well, he once bet $100 I'd cry at dinner. I didn't. I haven't since. So when the will ignored me, I didn't flinch. I'd already survived being invisible. I wasn't there for their approval. The locker key felt warm from my palm, even though the terminal air bit cold. It was one of those nights the city feels like it's chewing on you, wet, half-lit, mean. I found the locker quickly. 237. The number was scratched in with something sharp. I held the key, hesitating. I didn't think it would be money. Not from him to me. But still, a part of me wondered if it would be empty, if the final joke was opening nothing. Or maybe this was it. Maybe the man who left me out had finally left me something. I turned the key. Inside, a black envelope, a flash drive, and one line, handwritten. If they're reading this, I failed. My throat tightened. Not because I believed he loved me, but because I believed he regretted it. I tucked everything into my bag and walked home through the quiet. The flash drive sat untouched on my kitchen counter while I stood by the sink. I thought about Camille buying jewelry with my share. Ava booking flights with money she didn't earn. Sebastian hiring someone to manage his grief. They thought they'd won. They didn't know what I had. He was a control freak. He built his empire like a maze only he could navigate. His final trick wasn't giving them everything. It was giving me the one thing that could undo it all. When I opened the file, I didn't smile. I didn't speak. I just read. Ownership structures. Proxy chains. Patents. Licensing control. Internal memos. All under my name. Not loud. Not obvious. But absolute. If their fortune was a skyscraper, I now held the ground it was built on. I didn't need to fight them. I just needed to wait. They'd walk into me eventually. Camille texted me later. Hope your locker had snacks. I didn't respond. Ava followed with a screenshot of her new condo. No caption. Sebastian sent a voice note, 5 seconds of laughter. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. They assumed the story ended at the will. But that's not how legacy works. You don't win by being named. You win by being needed. And by the time they'd realized that, every step they took would already be in a structure that answered to me. Quiet power. Undeniable. I didn't get the fortune. I got the leverage. I called the executor that night. Asked one question. Was the will final? Legally, yes, he said. Practically, maybe not. I could hear the pause. The doubt. The part he wasn't sure how to say. He left them the spotlight, I replied. But gave me the switches. Silence. Then, exactly. I hung up. Made tea. Didn't drink it. Just sat with the files. One folder marked, fail-safes. I opened it. There were 3 names. 3 back doors. 3 outcomes they never imagined. I wasn't cut out of the legacy. I was holding the part that decides who stays in it. And I hadn't even started. The morning after the will, Camille was on the news. "It's a new chapter," she said, standing in our father's chair like she'd earned it. "We intend to honor his legacy." I watched her smile without blinking. Sebastian posted a photo holding the company seal, captioned "Built, not bought." Ava shared a quote about destiny. They were moving fast, buying power with money, making noise. But I'd seen the documents. The flash drive showed a different picture, one where the controlling shares weren't in their names. The new chapter? It started with Locker 237. And they weren't in it. That afternoon, I visited the firm. No lawyers. No scene. Just a conversation with the junior partner who handled compliance. "I'd like to register a change," I said. His face shifted when I handed over the folder. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "From the founder," I replied. He flipped through the signatures, the legal transfers, the original stamps. Then he called someone. Then they called someone. The room got quiet. I didn't sit. Didn't smile. Just waited. When he finally looked up again, he wasn't confused. He was cautious. "Miss Calder," he said slowly, "what do you want to do? Control isn't about volume. It's about consequence." I didn't freeze accounts or cancel access. I didn't post any proof. I just adjusted voting rights, redirected licensing profits, flagged 3 silent partners for audit. A quiet reallocation. Unseen, but irreversible. Ava noticed first. "Who authorized a hold on the Geneva funds?" I got the group text. Didn't reply. Camille followed. "There's a discrepancy in the transfer paperwork." Then Sebastian. "The foundation isn't releasing the trust." One by one, their access closed like piano lids. Not slammed. Just lowered. Deliberate. Final. They didn't know what changed. Only that something had. And it started with me. I remembered a dinner when I was 16. Camille told a guest I was our father's early complication. He laughed. "Like a startup prototype?" She nodded. "Exactly. My father didn't correct her. He just poured wine." Later that night, he gave me a key to his study. No words. Just the key. I didn't understand it then. I do now. He couldn't change what they thought. But he could make sure they'd never control what he built. He gave them the stage, but handed me the lights. And when I flipped the first switch, they didn't even see the room dim. 3 days later, their lawyer requested an emergency meeting. I declined. "Ms. Calder," his email read, "this affects multiple holdings." I sent back a single sentence, "I'm aware." He asked for clarification. I sent nothing. The truth was in the filings. The documents weren't dramatic. Just signed. Registered. Executed. 37 pages of quiet power. The original trust had been amended 5 years ago, sealed until activated. The trigger? A key. A time. A name. Mine. They inherited the wealth. I inherited the design. The thing about thrones is you can't sit in one if someone else holds the foundation. By the weekend, they were circling. Camille called me for the first time in 2 years. "We should talk," she said. "About next steps." I let it ring. Ava followed with a voice memo. "Whatever you're doing, just don't overreach. You're emotional." I played it twice. Deleted it. Sebastian tried humor. "Okay, CEO Calder. Let's not start a war." But there was no war. Just architecture. They were tenants in a house I now own the locks to. They didn't know that yet. But they would. Not with fury. Not with announcements. Just reality. Cold. Unshakable. Already written into the walls. That night, I went through the final file. Letters never sent. My father's handwriting, half-finished notes. Some to me. Some about me. None of them angry. Just hesitant. "I didn't know how to protect you without exposing you," one said. Another, "They would have destroyed you if they knew." I stared at that one for a long time. It didn't feel like affection. It felt like strategy. And maybe that was enough. I wasn't looking for love in his files. Just context. Explanation. I'd spent my whole life left out of the story. Now I held the author's final edit. Monday morning, I made one change to the company registry. Just the name on the voting chair. No press release. No announcement. Just a quiet handover that followed every legal protocol. The filing timestamp matched the locker key instructions to the minute. Midnight. Locker 237. That was the trigger. Everything else had just been noise. Camille called the registry office 6 times. Ava booked a crisis consultant. Sebastian threatened legal action. I made tea, sat by the window, and waited. The story hadn't broken yet. But it would. Because this time, I wasn't the family ghost. I was the executor. Camille showed up at my door without warning. No assistance, no makeup. Just panic disguised as poise. Let's be reasonable, she said. This isn't you. I let her sit. Let her speak. Let her circle the point like a predator running out of prey. Dad never meant for things to be punitive. That's the word she used. Punitive. As if justice were personal. As if being left invisible wasn't punishment enough. I slid a folder across the table. Her face stiffened as she read. Corporate minutes. Voting records. Her own forged signatures. This isn't revenge, I said softly. It's realignment. Ava called during the meeting. I let it ring. Then Sebastian. You need to stop this now, his message said. We can fix it, get ahead of it. But if you go public, we all lose. I sent him a single image. A page from our father's journal. If they force her out, they'll lose more than a sister. I added no caption. The silence that followed wasn't peace, it was recognition. They weren't dealing with someone wounded. They were dealing with someone prepared. For the first time in their lives, they were outmaneuvered. And they knew it. Our father had built the company to outlive him, but not them. He'd watched their arrogance hollow the thing he loved. And quietly, over a decade, he made corrections. Legal transfers, licensing rights, exclusive contracts with hidden expiration clauses. They'd inherited the outer shell. I held the core. When Camille reached for her new condo's down payment, the bank flagged the transfer. When Ava tried accessing the trust for her gallery, it bounced. When Sebastian attempted to fire a staff member, HR redirected him. To me. Each time, a thread pulled. Each time, they remembered who'd been left out. The real shift happened during the emergency board meeting. They walked in first, confident. I walked in last, unnoticed. That changed quickly. Ms. Calder will be sitting in today, the chairman said. In what capacity? Ava asked. I laid my documents flat on the table. Patents. Share control. Legacy votes. Founder authority transfer, I said. The room went quiet. Effective since last Monday. Sebastian stood. This is a coup. No, I said. This is structure. You just never learned to read the plans. I didn't need applause. Just silence. And that silence came, heavier than any argument. Camille asked for a sidebar after the meeting. He gave you everything, she whispered. He gave you every chance to prove you deserved it, I replied. Her mouth opened, then closed. That was the thing with entitlement, it couldn't survive transparency. I watched her excuses collapse. The narrative they'd built about me didn't work anymore. I wasn't the mistake. I was the audit. The unaccounted-for line item that now owned the balance sheet. She looked at me like she'd never seen me before. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe none of them had. But now they couldn't look away. I visited our father's grave that evening. Not to mourn, to mark a moment. They think you chose me to punish them, I said quietly. But I know better. He hadn't given me this power to settle a score. He'd given it to stop the damage. And maybe, just maybe, to give me a place in a story he'd once tried to erase me from. I left a copy of the original transfer papers beneath the flowers. Not for him. For whoever came after. Proof that being overlooked doesn't mean being powerless. Sometimes, it means being underestimated long enough to win. Ava issued a press release the next day. We're restructuring for efficiency, it said. New voices, same vision. A lie, beautifully written. She still had style. Camille vanished from social media. Sebastian tried to rally allies, but they smelled weakness. The empire wasn't collapsing, it was shifting. Quietly, legally, irrevocably. I didn't fire anyone. Didn't sell anything. Just replace the hinges on every door they once slammed shut. They didn't fall. They faded. Power isn't taken. It's transferred. And I'd just become the person their wealth depended on. They inherited his name. I became what it stood for. At night, I started sleeping. Not because everything was finished, but because everything had started. For once, I didn't need to prove I belonged. I was the proof. Not in spite of their inheritance, but because of it. They got the fortune. I got the right to decide its future. And they could either stand beside me or vanish in the shadow of what they thought they controlled. The key from locker 237 was still in my coat pocket. I hadn't thrown it away. Not yet. Not because I needed it, but because it reminded me where the door began. They tried one last dinner. Neutral ground, white tablecloths, polite wine. Camille raised a glass like nothing had happened. To family. I didn't lift mine. Say what you came to say, I said. Ava glanced at Sebastian. He cleared his throat. You've made your point, he said. But there's a way back. A deal. For unity. I smiled. Unity is a word people use when they want to divide things their way. Camille's voice cracked. We're still your siblings. I met her eyes. Only when it's convenient. The silence that followed didn't feel awkward. It felt honest. Finally. Ava tried next. We didn't know he changed the structure. You assumed I was irrelevant, I said. You assumed everything valuable would end up in your hands, like it always did. She blinked fast. You weren't there. You left. I was pushed out, I corrected. That's different. Camille leaned in, her voice brittle. Then take your part. Be reasonable. I slid a card across the table. My number. For your lawyer. Sebastian grabbed it. What's this? A licensing agreement, I said. You'll need it to use the family name next fiscal year. Ava's hand flew to her mouth. You're monetizing the name? Camille whispered. You're selling our legacy? No, I said. I'm preserving it. You were burning it. Sebastian slammed his fist on the table. He made you bitter. He made me capable. I let the word settle. And I made myself necessary. Camille looked at me, the way someone looks at a painting they never noticed before, only to realize they've been staring at the original while worshipping a forgery. I tried to love you, she said softly. No, I replied. You tried to shape me. There's a difference. And I stopped fitting. Sebastian stood. This isn't over. You're right, I said. It's just starting. Only now, you're not in charge. His hands curled at his sides. Not fists, just realization. Ava didn't move. She knew. She'd always been quicker. What do you want from us? She asked. Nothing, I said. That's the point. You wanted everything. I wanted autonomy. The check arrived. Sebastian reached for it. I intercepted. No. This one's on me. A small pause. A visible blow. Let it be a reminder, I said. I pay differently now. After they left, I stayed. Ordered tea. Watched the lights outside blink in rhythm. Power doesn't need fireworks. It needs stillness. Precision. They thought I'd come to bargain. But I'd come to confirm. Not dominance, clarity. This wasn't retribution. It was regulation. My entire life, they managed my presence. Now I manage their access. Not as punishment. As policy. I read over the licensing terms again, tight, clean, binding. My father would have approved. He never gave me affection. But he gave me authority. Maybe that was his love language. Protection through paperwork. At home, I found an old birthday card from when I was 10. Camille had written in it. Hope your day is special, even if it's not like ours. I stared at those words, the coded reminder that I was tolerated, not included. Ava gave me a necklace once, said it belonged to our grandmother. Later I learned it was a costume replica. Sebastian never even pretended. Their cruelty had always been curated, elegant, defensible. That was the genius of it. They never hit. They just didn't open the door. And now they were shocked I found the key. A week later, a journalist reached out. Off the record, she said. There's a story here, isn't there? I met her eyes. There's a structure, I said. The story is up to them. She asked for a quote. I gave her one. Legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what survives you. The article ran quietly. No scandal. No expose. Just a shift. The Calder name became less loud, more cautious. People noticed. Clients adjusted. Nobody asked questions directly. They just stopped calling the others first. There was a new voice. One they'd never invited. One they couldn't remove. That's the part they didn't understand. The damage was never done in rage. It was done in reason. There was no undoing it because there had never been a moment of chaos. Only consent. Their signatures. Their blind spots. Their arrogance signed in ink they never read. And me, sitting quietly, watching, learning. All I'd ever needed was the chance to speak in my own name. And when I did, they mistook it for noise. But it wasn't noise. It was notice. The article published on a Thursday. No names, just breadcrumbs, a prominent family's offshore holdings under scrutiny. Enough detail to alert the right people, but vague enough to protect my lead. Camille called within the hour. No greeting, no charm. Just, what did you do? I sipped my coffee. I verified. She tried to spin it, said I was implicating myself. I reminded her I never signed anything. That was always their game, circulate power, but hoard liability. Ava called next. You leaked financials? No, I said. I unsealed them. The distinction mattered. She just didn't know why yet. The board called an emergency session. Camille arrived first, flanked by her crisis lawyer. Sebastian showed up 20 minutes late, demanding silence he no longer owned. We'll survive this, he said. Spin it, deny it, shift the focus. Ava didn't speak. She was too busy reading the audit trail I'd distributed, subtle, elegant, devastating. Who is Naomi Calder Holdings? One board member asked. Camille went pale. A dummy corporation, she said. It's nothing. It's a registration gateway, I corrected. To me. Silence again. The board didn't argue. They didn't resist. They adjusted. That's what boards do when power reroutes. By Friday, sponsorships began to dissolve. Not in protest, but in silence. Gallery funding paused. Campaign donations stalled. Partners started using phrases like reassessment and independent review. Ava tried to reach out through mutuals. Camille sent flowers, lilies, ironically. Sebastian's lawyer emailed, without prejudice. Each gesture was elegant, useless. The empire was bleeding from a paper cut. Not enough to kill, but enough to humiliate. That's what they feared most. Not poverty. Not scandal. Exposure. For people who built their lives on presentation, truth was the only thing that could bankrupt them emotionally. Ava finally appeared at my office unannounced. She didn't sit. You said you didn't want revenge, she whispered. I don't, I replied. Then why? She asked. Because narrative is inheritance, I said. And I'm finally telling mine. She stared at the portrait on the wall, our father, solemn, severe. He'd hate this, she said. No, I answered. He planned it. She didn't cry, but her mouth trembled like a person watching their script collapse mid-performance. Ava was always the storyteller. I was always the afterthought. Until now. Camille posted a public letter. Mistakes were made. Assets misrepresented. We are cooperating. It was polished, precise, and a little too late. Every major outlet echoed it, but the subtext screamed louder. She'd lost control. Sebastian tried to counter with a podcast interview. 3 minutes in, he called me a parasite. 7 minutes in, the host read a transcript of a contract he'd signed under false pretenses. The episode went viral. The comments were brutal. Sponsors began severing ties. Investors called for divestment. Quietly, methodically, the fortress they'd inherited began to crumble from inside. I didn't attend the next board meeting. I sent my representative, a sharp woman with clipped vowels and perfect timing. She delivered a packet, exit strategies, asset safeguards, and a public succession plan. Ava signed immediately. Camille hesitated, then followed. Sebastian didn't show. He knew. Resistance would only spotlight his guilt. The final clause in the document read, future family interests to be managed independently, at sole discretion of Naomi Calder Holdings. My name, my terms, my legacy. Written in language even they couldn't misinterpret. Later, someone asked me if I felt triumphant. I didn't. There's no triumph in finally being heard. Only silence, the rare kind that follows resolution, not retaliation. They still lived in their homes. Still wore designer. Still posted curated grief. But now, they lived with awareness. Of who I was. Of what I'd done. And of everything they never saw coming. Exposure didn't destroy them. It simply revealed what they'd always been. And what I'd quietly become in the process. They still sign their Christmas cards with the Calder name, but fewer people open them now. Reputation doesn't shatter, it drips away, one unanswered email at a time. Camille still hosts galas. Ava still posts curated sincerity. Sebastian's face shows up in fewer boardrooms. No indictments. No headlines. Just a slow, steady exile. People say I was merciful. I wasn't. I was precise. That's worse. Mercy suggests forgiveness. Precision is math. They didn't lose everything. Just the parts they built on assumptions. My father left them wealth. He left me a choice. I took the one they never thought I'd have. I moved to the city's edge, glass walls, no gates. Quiet. Intentional. The kind of life I was always told I wasn't made for. No assistants. No committees. Just coffee I brew myself, music I play myself, decisions I answer to no one for. That's wealth. Not the numbers. Not the name. The absence of dependence. Sometimes I walk past the plaza where my stepmother used to host luncheons. They still hang banners with our family crest. But now they have to license it from me. The branding remains. The ownership changed. That's what makes empires bleed quietly. I get letters. Ava's are long, filled with regret in well-structured paragraphs. Camille's are shorter, asking for coffee, reconciliation, permission to pretend we ever liked each other. Sebastian's aren't letters, they're subpoenas dressed in inquiries. I keep them all in a drawer. Unread. That's the boundary they never learned. Not silence, but decision. Not rejection, but distance. The more you engage, the more they imagine a bridge. So I give them no rope, no response, no narrative. Just the one I control. That drawer is the only archive I keep. Not out of sentiment. Out of record. Even history needs a ledger. I remember being 12, watching them all toast my father at a company anniversary gala. I was allowed to stand in the back, near the staff. Camille wore emerald. Ava held the mic. Sebastian told a joke about legacy. I smiled then, because they forgot I was watching. They always did. That's the secret. You only have to be invisible long enough to become inevitable. I wasn't supposed to inherit anything. And now, they can't move a dollar without brushing against something I built. The real fortune wasn't in the vault. It was in the vantage point. Observation became leverage. The media calls occasionally. Would you like to comment on the family estate? No. Will you write a memoir? No. Do you regret it? Absolutely not. They want scandal. I give them posture. That's what endures. Not the spectacle. The silence that can't be ignored. You don't win by screaming louder. You win by rewriting the terms in ink they didn't notice. They thought they inherited the kingdom. But I own the rights to its story. Every press release. Every tax filing. Every licensing clause. It all flows through one name now, mine. People assume it's lonely walking away. But I didn't walk away. I walked forward. They're the ones circling. Trapped in rituals they can't rename. They host legacy dinners. I host strategy sessions. They perform memory. I execute vision. They were heirs by default. I became the architect. One step at a time. No flames. No revenge. Just dignity sharpened into strategy. My father didn't leave affection. He left access. They wasted it. I studied it. That's the real fortune: time, truth, and the clarity to tell the difference. I didn't just survive the empire. I replaced its foundation without them noticing. Once a year, I light a candle for him. Not because I forgive, but because I understand. He raised them to rule. He raised me to remember. And I did. Every slight, every oversight, every subtle cruelty that taught me to calculate before I claimed. In the end, we all became what he made us. But only one of us learned to leave the table before the feast turned. Legacy isn't blood. It's stewardship. And sometimes, the child they leave out becomes the only one worthy of carrying the name forward. They inherited the fortune, but I took the legacy.